Let's talk. Your health and wellness podcast.
Hi to all our listeners and welcome to the first episode of our 2025 Let's Talk podcast season and why 2025 will be your year. This year we're diving deep into topics that we started last year, focusing on nurturing your mind, body and soul. I'm Dr. Avron Urison and joined by my incredible co-hosts Brian Kitching, Mike Huse and Grant Austin. Together we're here to guide you through a journey of self-discovery, growth and empowerment. And in today's episode, we're going to focus on the mind and specifically emotional wellness as we start 2025. And just to say, 2025 is the year we break barriers, unlock our potential, and truly thrive. So let's start with one thing that drives it all. As we kick off the year, and so we want to build the foundations, and that's our mindset, and how we deal with our mindset, and how we build on it in a healthy and well-being way. And it's a great pleasure to always have my panel of guests. And we've got a couple of segments in tonight's podcast. And the first one, really, which we've entitled Unlocking the Mindset for Success. We've got Grant Austin as one of our panelists. Grant, so great to have you on this podcast.
Thank you, everyone.
And look forward to unpacking this topic, right? And I think a piece or a quote that we can kick off is in terms of saying, how do we achieve our goals and stay motivated, right? And that's really the mindset for success. I know in your many years and experience in this field, in the health and wellness space, you've dealt with it, and I'm interested to unpack this topic and understand how the power of positive thinking actually can affect your goals and affect your whole health and wellness mindset.
Okay, everyone, thank you. So, if you kind of get to a destination, you need a map. Without a map, you have no idea where you're going. You have no idea how far you've come. You have no idea of your progress and that kind of thing. So I find personally that setting out what your goals are is really important. And you can have multiple goals. You can have short-term goals, medium-term goals, long-term goals. You can have goals for your business. You can have goals for yourself personally. And you can also set goals for the people that work with and around you. So I always have a task list, and my task list can sometimes grow to 300 items. It sounds crazy, but that is it. And the reason I allow it to grow so big is because there's some stuff that I need to do at some stage, but it's not potentially possible right now, but it still has to stay on the list that I'm looking at. So what I basically do is I look through the goals that I can achieve for the day, and I set those goals for myself. If I'm not going to be able to achieve a goal, then I basically leave it off. It could be something that's critically important, but if there's nothing that I can do to affect that goal for today, there's no point in stressing about it. A lot of times what happens with people is they find some sort of a challenge and they focus on that challenge, but they can't resolve that challenge immediately. It either depends on a certain amount of time to elapse or somebody else to have some input or something like that. So, even if your house is burning down and you don't have a fire engine standing outside, there's not much that you can do about that. Obviously those are extreme circumstances, but that's how I sort of prioritize what I can do. And I don't allow that one burning problem that I can do nothing about to affect the other 9 that I want to achieve for the day. Otherwise your problems just mount up and mount up. So I find it's really important to set goals for yourself. And obviously a positive mindset also is really important. I'm very fortunate because I've always been a very positive person, whether it's part of my DNA, whether it's something that my parents have drummed into me, I'm not 100% sure. But generally when something like bad happens, no matter what it is, that could be something that breaks in my house, I see that as an opportunity to fix it. I don't see that as a problem that's, oh my God, this has happened and, what will I do now? And at one stage in my life, I thought about this and I thought, is there something wrong with me? Like, why do I see problems as an opportunity? And I realized that that's actually a really, really good gift that I've been given or learned or somehow came to kind of a thing. So A positive mindset really helps you to do that. And research has shown that, by having a positive mindset, you can achieve your goals. Your likelihood of achieving your goals is probably like 30% higher. Sometimes also you'll wake up in the morning and, whatever it is has gotten in your way or an obstacle, and it kind of gets you down. And I find that you can revise that in your mind. And by the time you've gotten out of the shower, you've like reversed any negativity that was there, and you've turned that into a positive for the day. I heard a really good saying once, and that saying was that when everything else is equal, attitude wins. And basically what that means is, if you have the right attitude, you'll beat anybody else. Everything being equal, attitude wins. I found that to be a really, really good sort of a quote. And obviously, overcoming self-doubt is also quite a big factor.
Grant, just before we go on to that, and I do want to tackle the self-doubt, but just the power of positive thinking, because I'm sure a lot of listeners are saying, okay, that's great, Grant, and great, you've got that positive thinking, but what happens if I'm not a positive thinking person? I mean, are there any tips or strategies that you can assist our listeners saying, how do they develop the power of positive thinking?
So I think that you have to set out your goals, and then you have to see how you're going to achieve them in manageable steps. It's all very well saying that, I'd like to be a billionaire, but how are you going to get there? So you have to then start mapping that out, number one, so that those things that you want to achieve become believable to you. Another thing that you can do is obviously draw on the counsel of other people. So I ask a lot of questions. If I come up across a problem, there's a certain group of people that I'd approach, this person for this person for that. So I find that chatting to other people with a similar mindset that perhaps have skills in areas that I don't have help me to overcome those and achieve those. I mean, unfortunately, some people are very negative, and they're always baffled to have a positive mindset. Luckily, I've been born with a positive mindset, and I try to surround myself with positive people, and that's what I found works for me. I
was about to say, and I think one of the key pointers we can maybe give our listeners, it's around surrounding yourself with positive people, right? But it's about the issue. Are you seeing the glass as half empty or half full? And I know that's a cliche, but it's really how you see the world and through what lens. And I think that's a great tip in terms of if you're struggling to see the positivity in things or having a tough day, try and surround you with positive people who can maybe express in a positive way and assist you and guide you.
Absolutely, Avron. And also, there's another good saying that this too shall pass. It sounds a little bit biblical, but that's very true, because if I look back on my life, I mean, I'm 59 years old. I've had multiple businesses, I've had multiple successes, and I've had multiple failures as well. When I was 27 years old, through a failed business that to a large extent was no fault of my own, I ended up with 100 million rands worth of debt in my name. Now, most people would have crawled under a stone and thought, well, that's it. But I didn't. I got out from under that, and I saw it as an opportunity to rebuild. And I did rebuild, and that made a massive difference. And obviously I had a lot of support around me and strong people around me and that kind of a thing. But, if you look back on the parts of your life that seemed like an absolute disaster, it could be a breakup with someone that you really loved 20 years ago. And at the time you thought, oh my word, my life's over. And you look back on that now and you think to yourself, that was just like a minor little bump in the road kind of thing. So you have to understand in your daily life that you're going to come up with adversity and problems and issues and that. Yeah. But when you look back on those things in the future, you're going to realize that there is a small blip. So understanding that now helps you to understand that everything that gets thrown in your way, you can overcome and succeed.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I think what we've said is one should start off, set one's goals, short and medium term if you want for the year. Put on that positive lens in terms of how you view things, realizing it's not all going to be positive, but view it in a positive way. And then you had started speaking about overcoming self-doubt. What is that about, and how do we do that? How do we overcome our self-doubt within ourselves?
Well, I think self-doubt is based on a whole lot of things, So self-doubt If you are if you're a professional in a certain area, let's say you're an architect and you can solve architectural problems, you're very confident in that. But then you're thrown into an arena where you have no knowledge or no expertise, and you might then doubt whether you are able to sort of overcome some obstacle or something that's thrown in your way. And that's where I find consulting people that are in the know and leaning on friends and leaning on research and reading books and stuff like that helps you to overcome that self-doubt. There's, it's also a cliche, but there's nothing that you can't achieve. There really, really isn't if you set your mind to it. So I think that you have to start from the premise that you can pretty much achieve anything. I'll give you an example. I ride, I haven't ridden as much as I'd like to lately, but I ride off-road bikes and enduros and that kind of a thing. And literally the only limitation of what you can do on a motocross track or an enduro track is you yourself. It's not the bike. It's absolutely not the bike. You've got the tools with you, and you just basically have to be able to master that. So check to other people, find out what their experiences have been, get their advice, formulate your plans around that, and that then helps to, make self-doubt basically dissipate. And that's what my experience has been. Don't be afraid to ask for help and advice. Only a stupid person thinks they can do everything themselves.
And I suppose challenge negative thoughts, right? Because those negative thoughts will creep in. And if they
everything
do,
can be turned to a positive if you just apply your mind.
Okay, great. And I think that would lead on, once you've got the positive thinking and overcoming self-doubt, to building self-discipline. Because I don't think you can achieve your goals and get there without building that self-discipline. And I'm sure you've had a lot of experience in this in your journey. What tips would you be able to give our listeners on that?
So I think discipline you can kind of breed into yourself. When you are like a 3, 4, 5-year-old child, you have very little discipline because everything just takes your fancy and you wander off in different directions and that kind of a thing. So I think that building habits is a very, very important part of discipline. A good example of that, the child example, is that why does it take children, half an hour to get dressed? And the reason that it takes them half an hour to dress is because they get out of bed and then they put their T-shirt on and then they put on one sock and then they, put on the opposite shoe. And after a space of time, they start to develop habits. They understand that you get out of bed, put on your underpants, you put on your socks, you put on your pants, you put on your shoes, put on your shirt, and that's the habit, and you're ready to go. So they have an unstructured mind. And as they start to build structure into their lives, they start to do things quicker and more by habit and even without thinking. I mean, think about when you learned to drive. You were so panicky, and you would be like driving down the road and you wanted to change gears and you look for the gear lever. And when you look for the gear lever, the car's veered to the right or to the left. And now it's absolutely second nature to you. You don't even think when you drive a car. You change gears automatically. You press the clutch, you press the brakes, you press the accelerator, you pull off correctly, and that kind of thing. So building habits into your life builds structure, and building habits and structure builds discipline. So I mean, obviously being involved in the gym business and that kind of a thing, one of the habits in my life since I was 4 years old, my father would get us up in the mornings at 5 o'clock in the morning. We'd go for a run around the track at the school next to our house. I mean, some mornings I remember running around the track crying my eyes out because it was cold and winter and freezing and raining. My father never let up on us though. Every single morning we had to go for our run. And that built discipline into my life. And I've been able to build on that discipline, every single day of my life, except for the weekends. I go to the gym. It's a specific time. I set that time aside. A lot of people say they don't have time for gym. And I say, well, if you had to go and fetch your mom from the airport at 11 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, the 27th, would you do it? And they say, yes. I said, well, how would you do that? Well, I would set that time aside in my diary. So that's what you got to do. So if you build strong habits, when you make the time for the stuff that's important for you, you build those habits, you build that discipline, and you can build that and integrate that into every part of your life. That's what I find works for me.
Ron, thanks. That's an amazing. I think those are invaluable tips for unlocking the mindset for success, positive thinking, overcoming self-doubt, and building discipline. Thanks for that input. I'm going to move on to our other panelists, but if you can, hang around because there is a section at the end which sort of I'd like your input when we wrap up everything. Thanks for your input. I want to welcome now our next panelist, Mark Huse. Mark, we've had you on the show before, so welcome. Nice to have you with us.
Happy to be here.
And I think Grant's segment leads quite nicely into now that we've spoken about the mindset, about how we start talking about how we build mental strength.
Right.
I think in 2025, that's a very important point. We know that there's a lot of mental issues around. People are struggling with that. And I'd like to unpack that topic because I think it's a key point in terms of driving your strategy for a year and working on your goals. So, Mark, welcome, and nice to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks. As you said, Grant kind of walked us into this topic about building kind of mental sharpness and mental strength, and a lot of the things he said kind of applies to what it looks like to build that mental sharpness and that mental strength. For me, I mean, again, I think it's a harsh thing to say, and I don't want to come across as harsh, but I think that you will never build mental fortitude for something that doesn't mean enough to you. And what I mean by that is, if you have a goal that doesn't mean enough to you, you will at some point give up on that goal when it gets hard. So my advice to people let's say that you're starting a fitness journey, and we'll use fitness as an example because, our podcast is heading towards health and kind of a holistic, healthy mindset. And I'd aim this towards someone that's maybe thinking about getting into a gym program or turning their life around this year, or, they want to make a difference. They don't feel good when they walk up a flight of stairs, or, they know that they eat badly every single day. And the first thing I would say to someone like that is I would say, well, how badly don't you want to live the life that you're living anymore? Because if you kind of don't want to live the life you're living anymore, then when it gets hard, you're probably just going to carry on living the life that you want to live. And you need to define the things that are important to you in life for yourself. No one can do that. I can't tell someone that living a healthy life is important. I can't tell them that if they have kids, being able to pick up your child and walk around with him or her is an important thing in your life. You as a parent have to decide that for yourself, as an example. But if you make that decision and say, that this is important to me, I want to be able to do this, and to do this, I need to make changes in my life, then that's the best first step that you can take to making a change. Because I guarantee you that it's going to get hard, because nothing worth having isn't hard. And if it was easy, then everyone would have it. But when it gets hard, if you've got a good motivating factor behind you, if you've got something that kind of burns a bit of a fire in your heart, then you'll probably stick to it. But if you don't, then it might not be the thing that you need to focus on right now. And you need to look for that thing that you do want to change, and you want to change it more than anything else in your life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure. So you're talking about the why, right? And we've heard a lot about that. You've got to determine the why for yourself. The why to get up at 5 a.m, the why to do exercise, the why to be a healthy person focusing on wellness. And am I correct in that?
Yeah, and I think, again, Avron, I think the important things to note is, I think everyone in society, if you look at the words, there's two really interesting words, and one word never gets the recognition it deserves, and one word takes all the recognition. And the word motivation, to me, I think the word motivation is a bit of a joke, because motivation doesn't last. Motivation is something that you get inspired by something. You see something and you get motivated. But motivation kind of falls away at some point. You go through a hard day, or you wake up and you're not feeling it today. Like, motivation isn't there. But what is there is whatever discipline you've put in place to do on that day. So if you know that every morning, whether you like it or not, whether you're feeling good, whether you're feeling sad, whether you're feeling angry or sore, you're going to go for a run at 5 a.m, right? You're giving yourself a non-negotiable. This doesn't mean, I'm going to go for a run if I'm feeling really good today. If I wake up and the stars aligned and everything feels great, I'm going to go for that run. Because when it doesn't, then you're not going for that run. But if you said, hey, if you feel terrible, It doesn't matter. I don't care, buddy. It doesn't matter what you want out of today. I'm telling you that no matter what happens, when I get up and when my eyes open at 5 a.m., I'm getting out of bed and I'm going for a run. Then you're going to go for a run and you're going to build that habit and that discipline that you are in charge of the decisions that you want to make about your body on a daily basis. Your body is not in charge of choosing when you get to do things and what you do. And the quicker your body understands that, the faster you get into something that you can maintain on a daily basis. And for me, it's if you can do something hard as the first thing in your day, the first thing that you should get out of bed, and it sounds terrible to say, but if you can start your day with one of the hardest things that you have to do in a day, then the rest of your day is going to be pretty easy. And it's going to make doing hard things a lot easier. I hate cold water more than anything on the planet. I absolutely hate it. But every single day when I get up and I have a shower, and I'll be honest, I have a hot shower in the morning, but the last 5 minutes of my hot shower, it's a cold shower. And the only reason I do it is because, well, one, it's good for you, but two, it's me doing a really hard thing that I don't like doing every single morning, so that all the other hard things that I know I'm going to do in the day are just a little bit easier. And it's made, for me, doing hard things just more manageable day to day. I'm not saying you have to have a cold shower, and I'm not saying that you have to go for a run, but any one of us can figure out something that they don't really want to do every day, and that thing that they don't really want to do is probably really good for you.
I think that's a really interesting insight. And
Mark,
I think
you come
useful
from
for our listeners, right? Does that help building resilience?
So
can I say something quickly?
Yeah, that's okay, which GE was saying.
Yeah, so Mark, I mean, you come from a background of combat sports. So you're used to getting into the ring and beating the hell out of someone or getting the hell beat out of you. And that's a hard thing. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, oh my God, I want to jump in the ring and get smashed. So you've set yourself goals that you just have to make. And if you've got to run every morning and exercise in the gym and do those things, so you can climb into the ring and you're ready. So setting yourself goals that force you into a position. No one likes to get hit, but you set yourself those goals when you climb into that ring, and the consequences of not preparing for that are extreme. So people need to set themselves some goals where the consequences are relatively extreme, and that makes you step up to the plate as well.
Yeah, 100%.
So I think what we've said it.
Sorry, I went go on.
Sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just think I said, G, I think you're 100% right. For me, the consequences are very palpable. Like if I don't prepare and I don't do the hard things, then I get clobbered and I feel it. But I think the worst thing for most people in life is that there aren't palpable consequences. And that's the worst place to be for me, is that comfortably numb area between really bad and really good. And I think a lot of people live in that kind of zone, and it's something to like really address in your life, because there's a saying of, I don't know what the definition of the saying is, but it goes like this. They say, I would rather things be terrible so that it's a catalyst for change, or the best they possibly could be so that I know I've made it. The worst place to be is in the middle, where you don't know if it's good or if it's bad, but it's not good enough to be great, and it's not bad enough to create change. And I think that people often live there because they don't realize that the consequence of not getting up at 5 a.m. or maybe going for a gym session a day might mean that when you get into the later stages of your life, maybe you don't have great hip mobility anymore and you can't do the things that you love right now that you take for granted. Maybe that's one of the things, but you don't know that until it's too late, until you've hit that wall of the palpable consequences that, let's say, someone like me faces on a daily basis, because on a daily basis, the preparation that I have to do is tested in some way, shape, or form. So I think it's important to just understand that those consequences could come along without you ever realizing it.
Yeah. I think the key issue is, and you bring up, is obviously for people to realize the consequences of not doing it. I'd like to sort of soften it a bit, because most people aren't going to wake up in the morning and take on their biggest challenges. But it's important to put them out there and saying, as part of my goals, this is what I need to do. Some mornings I'm going to make it. Some mornings perhaps I'm not. But at least know if they're not, that it's that they're not, that's not part of their strategy, and they need to try and get themselves back on that path.
You're 100% right when you say that. I'm here saying, oh, I do all these hard things. Grant mentioned that he's built up businesses and he's failed. You fail is part of life. Failure is so important. If you want everything, winning doesn't feel good. You've got to lose so that winning can feel amazing. So you're going to fail. There are days that I stand in the shower and I turn the hot water off and I get out the shower. Because that day, I was too much of a baby to go and have a cold shower for 10 minutes at the end. But it doesn't mean that I'm done. Okay, it's not over. Now, I don't do it anymore because I didn't make it today. It's just tomorrow I get in there and I give myself a bit of a pep talk because of what I didn't do the day before, and I make sure that I do it. And you can apply the same thing to every part of your life, as long as it's important enough. As long as, again, it all comes back to how important is it to you? Because if it's not important to you, then it's very easy to talk yourself out of it.
Agree. I think you're talking about resilience, right? And about bouncing back. But can you give our listeners some tips? It's all, very well for us to say, yes, you've got to have the strength, you've got to have the resilience. But someone says, okay, well, I don't. I can't wake up at 5:30 tomorrow morning. I can't wake. What tips can you give individuals to try and build that resilience?
So my best advice, there's a beautiful saying that I heard many, many years ago. And I think that it kind of ties into understanding what you need to do first before you can achieve what's second. And there's a saying that goes, sometimes you have to spill the tea to pour a new cup, which means sometimes something familiar has to go before something new can come. You have to create that space in your life that allows you to fight with something that is meaningful. And what I mean by that is, this is about self-reflection. To be able to do something like this, you have to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and know what's not good for you. And people can say, oh, that's a hard thing to do. It's really not. I can look in the mirror right now and tell you 5 things that I wish I was better at, and 5 parts of my personality that I wish I wasn't like in a certain way. It sucks because it's horrible to look at the bad side of yourself and look at the part that isn't the portrayal that you put forward to everyone around you, but it exists in every one of us. And sometimes you've got to let go of the bad part of you, the part that is stopping you from achieving these things, to be able to bring the thing into your life that's going to change your life for the better. And I'll give you an example. And I think one of my colleagues, Grant, and it's a terrible thing for me to say on a health podcast, but I mean, I'm just making a point. So I've been someone that smokes like these nicotine vapes for probably the last 2 or 3 years of my life. And out of everyone that I know, I was probably the most addicted person to that thing out of everyone. I mean, I smoke that thing when I wake up in the morning, when I go to bed at night. I don't drink. I don't do anything else besides that, but that was my vice. That was my absolute vice in life. And when I got stressed, I used to use it. And I made a decision at the end of last year that I was like, this is affecting the training that makes me happy and the goals that I have for myself. And I have to stop. And I tried stopping about 2 or 3 or 4 times before that. And I made it like 3 or 4 days. And I end up like 11 o'clock at night, getting in my car, driving somewhere to get, one of these vape pens at a petrol station. And I realized that I used to just identify as someone that was trying to quit vaping. And I didn't identify as someone that doesn't vape or doesn't smoke. And I made the decision at the end of December to be like, I don't vape, I don't smoke. It's not me, it's not who I am. And I have been offered, the last time was probably about 6 weeks ago, but I'm not even counting because it doesn't matter how long ago it was. I'll never be that person again because I'm not a smoker. And I made that decision to let that thing out of my life so that I can do the things that I want to do and that are important to me day to day. And it means more to me than smoking a vape. And you have to identify those things. So the best advice I can give to a listener is, we all know the bad stuff that we're doing to ourselves day in and day out. You have to take a hard look in the mirror and say, well, does the thing that I want to be or achieve lie on the other end of giving up this bad thing for myself? And if that bad thing is takeaways 3 times a day, because I want to live a healthier life, then it's very easy to identify what the bad thing is. And it's not about making big changes. It's about making small habitual changes that ultimately lead to big goals being achieved.
Mark, I agree
Thanks,
with you
Mark.
100% there about the small goals because,
Mm.
you know, when I try to, I wanted to start intermittent fasting because all of the benefits. And I was someone who used to eat like every 2 hours, and I would get angry and frustrated and that kind of thing when I never ate. And when I started to try intermittent fasting, instead of going the full 18 hours without eating, I sort of didn't eat at 7 in the morning. I'd try and push it till 8 or 9 or 10, whatever it was. And eventually I got to a stage where I didn't have to eat for 2 days. So if getting up at 5 a.m. and going for a run is problematic for you, for the first week, just get up at 5 a.m., have a cup of
Right.
coffee, and then work up from there.
100%. Yeah, I couldn't agree
Yeah,
more. It's just about getting to that goal.
yes. I think it's about breaking it into bite-sized chunks. Mark, thanks for
Yes.
those inputs. Well, I'd like you to hang around for our last segment as well, but thank you. And I think that's been incredible points and tips for our listeners. And I'd like to move on to Brian Kitching, one of our studio guests as well, and who has an expertise in terms of eating and foods, right? And I think we know the mind and body are connected. So, Brian, what we eat plays a significant role in terms of mental clarity and focus, and how we can build on these strategies for 2025. Brian, welcome. Nice to have you as a panelist.
Thank you very much, and hello to everybody. Today I'm going to be diving into something slightly different. It's about how incredibly important it is to actually start planning your life correctly around your eating habits itself. And the reason it's important, eating doesn't just affect how hungry you are, it also affects your body, your full physique, and also your mind. And it's all about that mind-body connection. For those of you who have listened to my talks in the past, you all know that I'm a person that believes in more of a holistic approach to everything in life. And I've actually been very interested in the last year and a half, 2 years, to listening to Dr. Paul Saladino as one of them, Dr. William Lee, another one, and they've all got these sometimes conflicting advice on how to go about eating properly. And that's one of the reasons I decided to jump into do some research myself and look at the various techniques of eating, what is important. And the further you go into your studies and looking at all of these things, you actually realize that, unfortunately, sorry, Doc, the medical fraternity have actually had it wrong for quite a long time. And the dietitians and food scientists and all those guys, they haven't actually been focusing because we didn't really know as much about the human body as we even know about the moon. We don't even understand the oceans that are around us, and the body that you're living in every day. People have lost connection with that completely. So if you're looking at food itself, it's actually a whole environment that you're feeding. You've got a whole colony of co-hosts that inhabit your body, and they all contribute something to you. And it's keeping them happy that will keep you happy in the end of the day. So the first thing I want to look at is it's the 5 tiers for healthy eating. And as you know, personal trainers, we are trained to count a lot. So everything is done in stages and numbers. So tier 1, you have to initially step your focus up and start eliminating the unhealthy things in life. And the first part that you can start looking at is a means of cutting out all sodas. And I'm not talking about soda water. We're talking about sugary soda drinks, including the diet versions, the energy drinks. The more acceptable fluids to take in would be liquids such as water, spring water, carbonated water, or freshly pressed fruit juices. Do not go buy the large bags at the supermarkets because those are all blended and a lot of them have actually been sweetened. Okay.
So Brian, what would you say to the guys that start with smoothies in the morning?
We will cover that coming up soon.
Okay, great.
Okay. So your second tier, that will start looking at what are you snacking on during the day, and how important are your meal plans? Because if you're not having the proper breakfast in the morning and you're not having a proper lunch, then you start snacking because you get that low, and then once again you jump back to tier 1. I'm going to have an energy drink to give me the boost. Okay, so you start removing all the unhealthy snacks. So instead of having all these processed foods, like chips and almond seeds that have been sprayed with vegetable oils. Opt for something more wholesome, something like a whole fruit, cheddar cheese. Don't go with the processed cheese because those things are basically flavored rubber and with no benefits. And the other healthy alternatives. So, as I said, look for the more natural things in life, things that great grandma and great grandpa used to live and thrive on. Okay, your third tier involves eliminating the fast food, the ultra processed foods from your meals. This doesn't mean you have to avoid going out to fast food places or restaurants, but make a concerted effort when you are choosing the food. Instead of having hamburgers all smothered in all the sauces and everything else, go with the veggies that come with the burger and the patty. Okay, so that's already a
Can I
step in
chip
the
in
right.
there 1 second?
Yeah.
My brother Mark, who's a health fanatic, and people always like look at him and say, "Wow, you're in such great shape," and that kind of thing. And he says you can always eat healthy. And I say, "Well, I'm a rep and I'm on the road and that." So he actually wrote a book called The McDonald's Diet. He got into quite a lot of trouble with McDonald's for using their name.
Yes.
And he basically ate McDonald's. I think it was for a month or 2 months. But he would go to McDonald's and choose like a grilled chicken wrap with salad and stuff like that. And all of his biomarkers improved over that month. It was actually quite amazing. So there is always a healthy option. If you go to a garage and you buy a garage part, you're not going to get great benefit, but you can always find a healthy option somewhere. That's basically the point I wanted to make.
Yeah.
Just
I think that's an
interestingly,
incredibly important point, Grant. I think
McDonald's actually contacted him. The legal department contacted him, and they were furious.
right.
They were absolutely thrilled that he'd written this book, and it proved to people that you could actually eat McDonald's and become healthier. But it's just about the choices that you made. So they said you shouldn't have done it. You shouldn't have used our name, but we're not going to stop you. So there's just an indication of what you can do.
I suppose it's the lens that you look it through. And if it's around health and wellness, as you say, then just use that lens and make sure you take the healthy choices.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Grant, you've got a son that's in the restaurant business. Would he chase away a client that is willing to pay the same price if you tell the guy or tell the waitress, instead of having my eggs done in oil or whatever, can you do it in water for me? If the guy's willing to pay for it, you're willing to do it for him. So I think most people are just afraid to open up their mouths and actually ask, because if you're asking politely and explaining a reason, many people will actually bend over backwards to try and accommodate you. And you might actually, in that act of talking out and saying what you really want in life, actually inspire somebody else that has been kept or has been keeping quiet for a long time to actually start learning. If you speak out, you get what you want in life. Okay, so now we're going into tier 4. Okay, and the fourth tier is start preparing your own foods and look at single ingredient foods. And the aim there is to try at least between 60 and 70% to make your diet consist out of your single ingredient foods. And when I talk about single ingredient, it must be a cow or a sheep or a pig lying on your plate. It must be spinach leaf on your plate. It must be a whole corn of or a whole cob of corn on your plate, an egg. So what I'm actually trying to get to is start getting rid of all those ultra-fine processed foods, because within those foods itself, they are increasing lifespan. It costs them super cheap, and they're putting in all the biggest lot of crap in there, and that is actually affecting the gut health and your microbiome, and then more importantly, the mitochondria, which we'll talk about a bit later. Okay, and then your final tier, it's not actually a step to take, but it is focus on the previous 4, all the changes you have made, and be cognizant of how you are feeling after you've made those changes, and start thriving in you are feeling better because you've made these changes, and it must be able to will you or encourage you to go further with these changes so that you can become the best version of yourself. Okay. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, it's no longer on the 5 tiers, but 5 tiers you'll see will come out within this part of the year. It's the importance of avoiding harmful drinks and snacks. Okay, so this is a very easy one. You wake up in the morning, you fall out of bed, and the first thing you jug down your throat is a protein shake. So what is bad about a protein shake? Have you read your label? Is it a pure whey protein or is it a blended protein? What sweeteners do they have in there to make it taste better? If they say it is natural flavoring, natural flavor for a whey protein is watered down milk. And if it's not tasting like that, there's something in there. Is it a basic sugar form, which would be either sucrose, or is it an alternative like these artificial sweeteners? Artificial sweeteners, no go. There's a lot more research going out now that they are actually hindering the proper signaling in the body and can cause mitochondrial damage and metabolic health. Okay.
Right, so if I just pause you there, because I think a lot of our listeners potentially may not be the listeners who are waking up and having those protein shakes, but just to go to a smoothie example at the beginning of your talk.
Yeah, no,
for someone who want to wake up and have that, what's your answer to that?
Yes, by all means, have your smoothie. But once again, are you putting single ingredients within your smoothie? If you're having a green smoothie like spinach or kale, what are you adding to make it sweeter? Are you adding sugar, or are you adding a lot of other junk in there? Or are you doing something more wholesome to bring out the natural sweetness, like apple or banana? Okay, right. So those are small little things. And then optimizing your diet, what we should look at over there is what I mentioned a little bit earlier is your single ingredient foods. Focus on those. Your food that has your thickeners in, and your artificial sweetness in, and artificial colorants in. All of those are just quick fixes, and those over there would actually lead to detrimental illnesses that come down the line. And you might not have it today, but tomorrow something might be waiting for you that you didn't really expect or plan for. Then your practical meals and snack ideas. Doctor, this is where you're going to start coming in now. Your smoothies and all of those come in over here. So you want to have practical meals and snacks for brain health. Now, practical thing for fueling your body and your mind with food is that you need to boost your brain function. Think about incorporating more things like omega-3 rich foods, which you'll get from salmon, walnuts, flax seeds, and not the flaxseed oil. That is a seed oil. Use the flaxseed itself, sprinkle it over your food. It makes the food taste nice and nutty. Great stuff. These are important for your cognitive function. And then your green leafy veggies, your berries, and your nuts, they would also help and boost you. A lot of nutritional benefit from greens and berries. Some easy ideas for a morning smoothie: spinach with berries and chia seeds. Lunch, grilled salmon with quinoa, or steamed broccoli, with smoked grilled chicken, or hard-boiled eggs. Those are all things that are very basic, easy to make. They're not going to steal your whole morning doing prep. So those are quick, easy little fixes. And having those quick fixes for your breakfast and then for your afternoon meal, it actually balances out your blood glucose, so you do not get that big crash in the afternoon, which will make you run to your caffeine and all the other goodies. Then the gut and the mitochondrial health. Many people actually go way wrong in thinking that all your dopamine fixes and the serotonin fixes and all that comes from your brain. The majority of these chemical signalings and manufacture comes actually from the gut microbiome that you have. And if you're looking at your repair and your energy levels in your body, if you do anything negative towards your mitochondria and the walls start breaking, and you don't have the autophagy kicking in properly, you're sitting with a lot of dead cells which signal other cells to start dying because they're overworking. It becomes one big chain reaction. So how do you keep your mitochondria happy? Okay, by keeping your mitochondria happy is by keeping your the way to keep your mitochondria happy is to keep your gut happy. Okay, and those are eating things which incorporate probiotic-rich food like yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, or any other fermented food stuff. Great for that. Your prebiotics you'll get out of nature from garlic, onions, bananas, and eat fiber-rich food. Stay hydrated, and you start learning to manage your stress. Your mitochondria.
Ron, thank you. I'm just going to have to ask you to pause there, and I think those are amazing. There's a lot of information for our listeners to digest. Excuse the pun, but I think that's assisted them. There's some great ideas in terms of the different levels and what they need to look at, and the lens one needs to look at 2025. I'm going to be eating healthier, and I think those are great pointers. And I think with upcoming shows, we can tackle it and go into more in depth about those specific topics. What I just wanted to, just from a medical perspective, and with you guys and panelists, and I'm happy for you guys to chip in with your comments and thoughts, but I was just trying to note some important medical facts around setting your year up and 2025 coming, and just a couple of important points. One, the first being the impact of stress on emotional wellness, right? So we know that chronic stress can lead to mental health challenges, anxiety, and depression. And there's a lot of medical research showing that prolonged exposure to stress hormones such as cortisol can alter brain function. So one wants to obviously learn, an individual should learn, how to identify the early signs of stress, such as fatigue, difficulty concentrating, lack of wanting to do physical activity, some stuff we spoke about earlier in the year, maintaining a balanced diet. And those can be early red flags in terms of stress is developing and something that one needs to tackle. And when one needs to chat to other counselors or look for professional help. I think chronic stress, we can't underplay it. And we just as individuals need to learn how to see those signs of those red flags and reach out for help and make the changes. And I suppose those would be changes within our regular activities. A second point, which I also just want to, and I have spoken about this in previous shows and podcasts, is that sleep, right? Sleep and our mental health. I think it's one of the most neglected areas. I think Mark was talking about waking up at 5 a.m. And I think, Mark, you can only do that if you go to sleep at 10 the night before. But if you're watching Netflix or partying all night, you're going to struggle with that. And it's the importance of actually, as we go into 2025, I think it's a critical area to look at. And I certainly in future podcasts want to delve into sleep and the importance of that and how to maintain a consistent sleep schedule. And my third point I just want to raise is that there's so much distraction digitally in our world. Social media becoming so important. We've all got the screens. I think we need to practice how to manage that properly and talk about maybe some digital detoxes and how we rather look for real world connections when we're exercising, when we're going through our wellness and we going to our gyms. What do you guys think of those points in terms of stress, sleep, and our digital distractions in our world, and advising our listeners as we're looking how to tackle 2025, the importance of tackling those issues?
I mean, sleep makes a massive difference. You have to, and also sleeping at the right time. We were basically designed to go to sleep at sunset and wake up at sunrise. A friend of mine who also runs quite a number of businesses found that his most productive time was to work at night. So he'd pretty much work a night shift every night and then sleep, for part of the day. and he went to his doctor for a checkup, and the guy said, your cortisol levels are through the roof, dangerously. It could actually kill you. And he hadn't realized that we're designed to go to sleep at sunset and wake up at sunrise. So sleep is exceptionally important, and you need to get that right. I just want to revert back to something with regards to habits. Everyone says you must drink more water, and I'm always baffled to drink enough water. So you should drink about whatever it is, 3 liters a day, whatever it is. And the best way that I've found to do that is to have 3 liters of water on your desk. So in the morning when I get up, I put my 2 bottles, 1.5 liter bottles on my desk, and by the end of the evening, I have to have drank those. So those are the little
That's such
sort
an
of
important
tips.
point. Have your goal right in front of you, right? Visualize it, put
100%.
it out there, what you're trying to achieve.
And also then, I take a fair amount of supplements and that kind of thing. And in order not to forget to take them, I link them to a habit that I always do. So every morning I brush my teeth, every night I brush my teeth. And when I brush my teeth, the list of supplements that I have is in a preset little thing that I've, measured out for the week. And I have my little vial or whatever you want to call it, container of the range of pills that I need to take. When I brush my teeth, I always remember to take the supplements. So link the habits that you want to make to habits that you already have in your life. That's helped me a lot.
I think that's a fantastic point. Ron, thank you so much. Mark, any parting words to our listeners as we head into 2025, even though we're almost a month in already, but as we're looking to tackle it from a health and wellness perspective?
Look, again, I think what I'm going to say now, I think you can take it with a pinch of salt because it's maybe a little bit controversial, but I think it's an important thing to be said. I think that stress and anxiety and burnout is a partly first world person problem. And I say that with all respect in the world for people that genuinely go through extremely stressful situations. But at the same time, I think we give ourselves a bit of a scapegoat to say, I can't train today because I'm really burnt out or I'm really stressed. And it's like, if you go back 200 years when you could go to Ohio at any minute and you had a job and you were a blacksmith or whatever you were, like there wasn't such a thing as you burnt out or there's too much stress. You've got to do what you've got to do. And we obviously live in an age that is very different now. So I do understand that there are different things that we struggle with. But I think sometimes what you have to do is understand that your brain will do whatever it takes to stop you from doing the hard thing. It'll trick you and try and get you to believe whatever you think or whatever the easiest and most tangible thing to prevent doing the hard work that you don't want to do is justified. So while there might be times that you are too stressed and you need to take a break and you might be burnt out and you might be going through anxiety, there might also be times where you need to do the hard thing in spite of feeling that way. And the only way to get through those stressful times or to prove to yourself that you can do these hard things is to do things in spite of how you're feeling. That's just my opinion on it. I'm blessed myself to never have been in a situation where I feel overwhelming stress or overwhelming anxiety. I've known plenty of people in my life that are not as fortunate. So I'm definitely not taking away the emphasis of that. But I also know that there have been times where I really don't want to do something and my brain gives me 100 different reasons on why I don't have to do that thing. And I could take any one of them, and any one of them could be, I'm really burnt out. I've trained 5 times this week. It's all good if I don't train today because, we'll do it again tomorrow. And it's like, you have to make that decision in that moment to say, well, this is worth more to me than not doing it today.
Mark, thank you. Great points. And we'll definitely tackle the stress head on and use it to build your year and don't run away from it. Ryan, any final points just to share with our listeners on this podcast?
Now, also a little bit controversial, but more and more research is actually pointing to the fact that diet actually impacts stress from cortisol right through. So start getting your diet back, and you'll see that even from past cases, when people were eating a lot healthier without all the junk that they're throwing into the food, people were a lot healthier mentally and physically. And now all the other stuff come in, their minds can't cope anymore because these things are actually designed for a reason to make you addictive. So, yeah, that's my 2 cents worth.
I think
Can I
some
add
great
one last little comment here, Avron?
Yes.
So, your mind is an amazing thing. So let's say that you have like a hugely stressful day at work and you are tired as hell and all you can think about is going home and, sitting down on the couch, maybe having something to eat, maybe having a drink and going to sleep. And then a really attractive woman that you know gives you a call and says, how about going to dinner? Suddenly your fatigue is gone.
Mm.
And you're really invigorated and excited and that kind of a thing. And you suddenly have the energy to do something else. So bear that in mind. Change your mindset and everything can change for you. You can have the hardest day at work, the hardest whatever, and something changes. Your friends want you to go out or there's something exciting to do. And immediately your whole attitude to life changes. So just bear that in mind and try and harness that and use that to your advantage.
I think those are amazing words to finish off our podcast this evening. Grant Austin, Mike Huse, Brian Kitching. Wow, what a fantastic way to kickstart 2025. We've explored the power of mindset, the tools for mental strength, and the importance of emotional wellness through nutrition, relationships, stress, tackling it, and setting goals and strategy for 2025. And just to tell our listeners, which we've emphasized over and over again in the show, through diet and tackling stress and strategies, that your mind is your greatest asset. So what we promoting here is nurture it, challenge it, and let it thrive.
And let it work
If
for
you
you.
found this episode inspiring, don't forget to subscribe and share it with someone who needs a little extra motivation this year. And stay tuned for our next episode where we'll shift the focus to the body and explore fitness and physical wellness for 2025. Thanks everybody for listening, and cheers for now.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Let's talk.